I'm Matt Landau from VRMB, and this is Unlocked, Season 9, Home Runners. This episode features Lauren Madewell, who was training to be an air traffic controller back in 2011 when her cousin/aunt, Shannon, suddenly passed away and left to Lauren's father 51% of a family vacation rental company called Auntie Bellham's in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Lauren joined forces with her dad to run the show and did pretty much every job in the book, not unlike a lot of our listeners. She eventually began stumbling into her skills as a problem solver, as a leader, and this is when the story really gets started for me, because in this leadership discovery process, Lauren's had to channel the things that are important to her, her values, and codify, to systematize them in a way to live by them and work by them in order to build a company that retains its employees and its homeowners and its guests like family, which is how Auntie Bellham's has done it now for almost 3 decades. The discoveries in this interview are simply nothing short of hospitality leadership breakthrough, and Lauren is so thoughtful with her words, you will want to hang on every single one of them. This episode is brought to you by Point Central, the leaders in smart home automation, and Breezeway, a property care and operations platform. Like with every episode this season, I kicked off the interview by asking Lauren, what does home runners mean to you?
To me, a company steps up to the plate, right, hits it out of the park, and in doing so gets all the teammates on base across home plate for the score, that being employees, guests, vendors that we work with locally, everybody, getting everybody across home plate by just hitting it out of the park.
So if we continue along this metaphor, there's a baseball game taking place and someone's up to bat and there's all these other players. What does that make you in the home runner escape?
Third base coach.
I love it. Third base coach. I was gonna say first base coach. So tell me why third.
Actually, one of my very first jobs was an assistant coach at 19 years old for the softball team that I had just played for the year before, which seems so bizarre. And the head coach was third baseman, and I thought my position on first base was relatively easy. Like, I'm just minding the person hitting, which is generally just saying, go, 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 go. But,
Run.
yeah, but third base coach is looking at first base, second base, third base, watching all the defense players and the batter, the pitcher, the catcher, everybody, watching everybody and doing their best to get people across home plate.
I love that. And the third base coach, there's a lot of pressure on that because it's on a dime. You've got to make this decision based on the stuff that's in front of you and your experience to either turn them in and have them go all the way for home or hold up, because sometimes we don't go for home, right?
Yeah, man. Yep. You got to be quick, adaptable, and sensitive, and follow your gut.
And there's a lot of pressure on that position in an organization. And you have been training for this all your life.
Yeah, essentially have.
In a weird way, you have. In an obvious way, you most definitely have not. For those who you don't know your company, let's start off with your company and then we'll talk about how you got there.
Sure. So Auntie Bellham's Cabin Rentals was started by, I call her Aunt Shannon, but she was my dad's first cousin in 1994. So we're a 28-year-old business, and I can't remember her exact age, but she might have been like 25 when she started the business. She was a young one. And Auntie Bellham's started off as a general store in a little cabin in between the parkways of Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. It's still there and still adorable. It's just a liquor store now. And so anyway, she was working for the family general store, and she essentially bought her first cabin and started renting it out because she knew that there was a market for that, and she wanted in on it. She was already a real estate agent She saw that the numbers were there. She wanted in on it. So she bought her own. And then she had friends in the area. So she kind of grew a little portfolio that way. And then just Auntie Bellham's has proceeded to take off from there. We're in a new building, obviously. And that was 28 years ago. And 10 years ago, um, Aunt Shannon, she passed away. And as a total surprise, left the business to my dad in the will, left 51% of the business to my dad in the will. We had no idea.
Wow. When did you, what was the setting in which you learned that?
Well, I was in college, and I was actually going to school for um, air traffic controlling, air traffic management in Georgia, several hours from home. And Dad had called me several times. He hadn't left a voicemail. You know, as a college student, I'm just like, oh my God, I'll call Dad back whenever I get a chance. And then eventually he left the voicemail, and it sounded pretty serious. So I called him back, and that's when he told me.
And he told you that she had passed and the business.
I think the first phone call was that she had passed away, and then the followed up like several hours later, or maybe the next day. Like my imagination may be blurring things all into like one thing, but just to say that yeah, he had inherited 51% of the business. He had no idea it was coming. And then we come to find out that she'd actually talked to several other people in the family, an aunt who was a real estate agent, to see if they were interested. And largely nobody was. And my dad was always in a leadership position, and he was managing some a pretty impressive company, a rubber manufacturing company. And she'd always loved us, and she at a point she was a bit closer to us than her immediate family. And I think she just had a lot of respect, and she knew that my dad could take good care of her people and her employees, who are like a family. And she just knew whether or not he kept the business or not, she trusted fully that he would take care of everybody. And he fell in love with it and ended up leaving his job that he'd been with for over 20 years, fell in love with it, and moved here full time. And I realized I didn't want to do air traffic controlling. And so I came and started working for the family business. And this was maybe 8, 9-ish years ago. And I took a break at one point to bartend and other things. And then I realized like this was my place. This was my family. I love being here. I love this job, this market. And I've never looked back.
And so I have like a gazillion questions. Who owned the remainder of the company?
It was kind of divided up between her niece, who was very, very young at the time. So, kind of by default, her mom, which was Shannon, Shannon's sister, her mom basically absorbed 49%. And then her and my dad worked together a little bit, but ultimately he was just able to buy her out.
It sounds almost like the beginning of a movie. You know, suddenly this family who has no experience in vacation rentals loses their aunt, and suddenly, poof, they're now thrust into the industry, into the sector. And had you worked with your dad at any point, or was this all at once first time stuff?
All at once, first time stuff. Gosh, I'd worked at a barbecue joint named Papa Willie's, and I'd worked as my sister worked at a barbecue joint called the Oink Joint, and this is small town Georgia, Zebulon, Georgia. And then I was that assistant softball coach and basketball coach, and that was it. That was all the experience I'd had doing anything. But I was definitely a dad's girl, and he and I are so similar, which means we butt heads, but largely we're right on the same page. So we've worked together very well. And my dad, oh my gosh, he's such a compassionate, patient, understanding. He's just such a good dude. Everyone finds him easy to work with. So it's been a pleasure. Like I genuinely love seeing my dad every single day that I come to the office. And I'm sad when he's gone on his long trips. And he's sad when I'm
Aw,
gone.
aw, you're making my relationship with my father seem suddenly terribly inadequate.
Oh no. No.
In his defense, my father ran our family shop for over 50 years in Princeton, New Jersey, where I'm originally from. Ironically, when they closed down the family shop in the middle of COVID, it too became a liquor store. So we have that in common too. And
Really?
I think my father, I mean, it's kind of a sign of the times. No, if something really special and unique suddenly becomes the mass produced vice store in town, it's kind of like a sad thing. But I also definitely channeled the way that my dad always did business, and the way that my dad is today in his relationships, with what I do. But I could never imagine working with him. I think that would drive me absolutely crazy, much less what it would do to him. So, how do you enter into this kind of partnership? Is it designating roles and responsibilities up front? Is it feeling out who's good at what? Because you didn't have any experience in the industry either. You're busy air traffic controlling.
Or, or trying. I don't think I was very good at it. Which was very important for me to then step down and move on to something else. Um, I came in and essentially I came in and there were people who had worked here for a long time already, and many of them are still here. Like perhaps half of our employees worked for Shannon and have been here that long, 10, 15, 20 years. Um, and so he thought it was very important that I kind of earn my keep and then he be able to see uh, where I have potential for the most growth and can do the most for the company. And so like I folded laundry for a little while. I did reservations for a while. I did inspections. I started to do like video tours. Um, I just started getting involved with every bit of it, being in on the marketing meetings, and kind of eventually when I was in the reservations department, that's when I kind of started realizing um, um, where I could be a leader. I just saw the possibility for better systems, better processes, um, enhancing the company culture. And so I just kind of started challenging things. And if it wasn't for my privileged position of being the daughter of the owner, I very well could have been let go or, quit myself because I was kind of challenging everything and getting us into the future and to be better. And just because something has always been doesn't mean that it has to continue to be. And so I started taking on kind of bigger projects, and dad recognized that and recognized my capabilities. And then eventually there was a room in the office that was just used for storage. And he said if I cleaned it out, I could have an office. And if I had an office, he had, a new set of expectations for me. And it was to work with the homeowners and develop those relationships and be their go to, which I still am. But I've also kind of just, I don't know, I'm in an in between phase right now where I'm comfortable with the culture I've helped to create here alongside my dad and with the managers. I think we're in a really good spot, and I'm kind of starting to carve out a new path for myself or a new course,
Mm.
and it's, like we talked about at the Keystone Retreat, looking more like community involvement and hopefully advocacy and doing more for my community here and the industry at large and my particular market and trying to get involved with organizations and stuff.
I want to talk about your keystone discoveries in a second, but I am also really curious, based on what you have learned, if one of our listeners is in a position and they see something that's not working or see something that's broken in their organization or see something that's always been done that way and they know there must be a better way, but they've never actually stepped up and proposed it, what advice would you have for them?
Oh, I mean, the worst that could be done is it gets shut down or there's a compromise, where maybe it can't be exactly the way that you thought, but it doesn't have to continue to be the way that it was, and you can better the system through compromises.
Mm.
I mean, you have to speak up. You just have to, and figure out the best way to do that for you. Like learn your communication style and prepare yourself. But gosh, the worst that it could be is shot down, but at the very least you've planted a seed.
Can you elaborate on that? Know your communication style?
This is something I've been very self-aware my whole life, but working more closely with Amber Hurdle and taking like her Velvet Machete Leadership Academy and learning about personal brand and stuff. There are communication styles, and I don't know like the specifics of them off the top of my head because I've been largely self aware. But like Amber makes you take all sorts of tests and stuff, and you learn about yourself that way. And when you're just learning key details about your personality, like through the Enneagram test, um, you learn how to communicate with other personalities.
Mm. And would you say also that some element of inventiveness or creativity in actually proposing a better way? I've always found that like if you tell somebody that something's broken, they are their feathers go up. But if you say, "Have you ever tried this new way?" it's at least a little bit easier for them to accept while saving face.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like if I have a great idea and several managers need to know about it, I'm delivering that differently to each manager based on their communication style, which I don't like I don't have um a name for or like a type for, but like through uh through successes and failures in communicating with them, you just learn how they like enjoy things brought to them or prefer things to be brought to them. Like um my dad would do better hearing that something might be broken, and here's a way to fix it. But don't say that something is broken without offering a way to fix it. Um, and then the maintenance manager, I would never tell her that I think something is broken and here's a way to fix it. I would float her I would just simply say, "Hey, I've kind of recognized this," and float her some ideas and just say, "Yeah, ultimately, I trust you, and you might have a better idea. Let's spitball this, but I think we can make it better."
Yeah, that's hard to turn down. You had mentioned the Keystone Retreat, which I had the pleasure of meeting you for the first time, actually, in person
Yes.
in
Mutual.
Tennessee there. And perhaps the most telling thing that I learned about you took place before the event even began. And it's because we had designated these sort of basic principles about these private retreats. And one of them was that we didn't want to have anybody from immediate competitors in any of these small cohorts because we felt that safe space was important. And sometimes you feel the need to hold back if a competitor is in the same space and might take your tips and run with them. However, in your
Yeah.
case, uh, sort of last minute, we had some rescheduling, and I asked you if you had any issues, if there was another vacation rental manager from Gatlinburg, if it was okay if they attend your cohort too, if you'd have any issues with that. And that was, of course, Miriam, who you're now like besties with. But I'm curious if you can share what went through your head when you responded to me about that.
Well, I was like, "Oh my gosh, Matt is so respectful." I didn't even think about that. Like, would other people from my own market be there? It was not a concern for me. Um, I've never really viewed others in the area as quote unquote competitors. They are. I don't view them that way. There's enough business in this destination market to go around. We all need to be here. We all can barely keep up sometimes. And so my dad and I are friends with several businesses in the area. And my dad and Steve Milo text back and forth sometimes. Um, so I was honestly I thought it was respectful of you. I wasn't worried about it. If anything, I was excited because I was like, "Ooh, yay, either I know this person or this is like one more ally in the market and in the industry." Because ultimately with, it's the wild west of vacation rentals right now, which means eventually hard regulations are going to come. And I don't know if it'll affect our area as much as others because we're almost a 100-year-old tourism industry, but if things take place nationwide, like we'll need allies and we'll need to stick together and we'll need to be on the same page about things. And I was super excited. And I thought maybe this person has more community involvement than I do right now and they could help me get involved. I was just pumped about it. And then Miriam it couldn't have been a better person.
Yeah, in hindsight, what'd you learn about Miriam?
I learned that She is just as compassionate deep down inside, I think, just as compassionate and sweet and understanding as I feel that I am, but she's got a much tougher surface and I think delivery than I do, and I can learn a lot from that because I think there are times I need to be, uh, a little bit tougher in my delivery. I get real cozy with people and largely that's an advantage, but sometimes you can find yourself at a disadvantage, and she taught me some valuable lessons about, knowing where to draw the line sometimes.
Mm, that's such a powerful thing. And I see exactly what you're describing in Miriam, this kind of boldness. And I'm curious how after the retreat, maybe it changed, maybe it didn't, how you describe your leadership style to people.
I'm not afraid to shake things up. I'm not afraid of consequences. I'm very calculated to avoid consequences, but I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid to challenge. Um, but at the same time, I do everything in balance, or I do my best to. So, like I was saying with my communication style, maybe I have to deliver something pretty intense, or I have to make a change, and it might require taking somebody by the shoulders and kind of shaking them up a little bit. Um, I'm not afraid to do that, but I also know how to do it gently, um, and yeah, tastefully, gracefully, understandingly. This is a person who I consider like my family. Like, they go home, they cook their meals, they have loved ones, they look forward to their vacations, like, I don't know, just on that smaller granular level, like, um, I don't know, that's how I prevent myself from being intimidated is they're just like me, and ultimately, like, I think Amber Hurdle, it looked like my quote after our meeting was, "Leading with love," and I would say that's what I do. I just lead with love. I Everything that I do is with good intention and done in love, so I know it's gonna turn out well, and it might be a rocky road, and I might have to say, "I'm sorry for the way I could have handled that. I way I handled that. I could have handled it better along the way," but, like, I take no qualms with apologizing and learning and being a better person and being called out. So I lead with love. I do, but I have balance about everything. I know when to be tough and I know when to be soft.
And now a word from our sponsors. Point Central provides smart property solutions for smart vacation property managers. They help streamline operations, protect the property, and enhance the guest experience using keyless access. Why? Because guests are tired after traveling, duh. And being able to go directly to that property with keyless access instead of stopping at a manager's office, this is no longer a luxury. This is a standard practice. Plus, everybody loves avoiding extra trips due to lost keys, not to mention the constant cost of rekeying. Point Central partners stay aware with an activity log of who enters and leaves the property, which helps keep track of cleaning and maintenance crews as well. You can also gain control of your utility bills with their smart thermostats. Schedule set points so guests won't be able to drastically raise or lower the temperatures, for instance. You can ensure the temperature stays consistent when the unit is vacant. Prevent costly maintenance projects caused by water leaks, mold, or HVAC issues with real-time alerts that allow you to be proactive. Visit pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. And Breezeway, whose property care and operations platform helps you coordinate, communicate, and verify the detailed work and deliver the best service experience to your guests. With tools for intelligent task scheduling, quality assurance, real-time work coordination, guest messaging, supplies management, owner reporting, and more, oh my! Breezeway helps thousands of short-term rental managers and hospitality operators increase your operational efficiency and eliminate hours of manual work. This allows you to boost your service revenue. It was created by the founding team of FlipKey, which was since acquired by TripAdvisor, and Breezeway is just elevating the experience at every property they touch. Visit breezeway.io/VRMB and get implementation fees waived. That's a $1,000 value right there. Okay, let's get back to the show. And how do you, because to run a company of your size as successfully as you guys have for this long, and to really be the desire of all these other companies that are trying to acquire vacation rental managers, which is to say, like, you're attractive inside and outside to everybody. What do you put in place with your team to, I don't want to say like offer endless love because that sounds terrible of me to say. But as a business, we've got to draw some lines, right? And there's people who inevitably cross those boundaries. How do you guys keep that in check? Or is it not even something that happens often enough to worry about?
Gosh, so many of us have worked together for so long. We've kind of worked out those kinks. Lines do get crossed. I don't know if this is kind of what you mean, but like I set up a suggestion box in the reservations department and I set up a suggestions box in the maintenance department so that people can just any of their ideas or their frustrations or complaints or opinions, they can put it in there anonymously or not. And they know that I'll be reading it. And then I can ultimately kind of know, like, oh, this, I've got to work closely with the reservations manager on this, or the reservations manager and the lead, or I've got to work closely with the maintenance manager on this, along with the housekeepers, and or along with the laundry department, like all the so that people don't have to feel like they're stepping on toes or crossing any lines or bothering anybody, or maybe they're just not comfortable in the way that they can communicate something in person. They I offer them the ability to write it down. They know I'm the one who looks at it and I can figure out how to approach it. Which has helped mitigate frustrations building up. This is a frustrating industry. This is a frustrating thing that we all do. It's very incredibly rewarding, but there's a lot that's frustrating about it. And so rather than kind of holding on to things because somebody doesn't know how to communicate it, and it gets really frustrating. And one day it was the straw that broke the camel's back, and you just kind of explode.
Like a pressure release valve almost.
It's a release valve, and, they've been able to see how we then handle those suggestions, and then I've realized that they're now feeling more comfortable utilizing the open doors or just addressing things right on the spot with their manager, but we are so much like a family here, and like I said, we have worked together so long, um, and we're friends inside and outside that normally you just handle things as they come. We've kind of learned each other up to this point.
Hmm. And as a leader, I think if I've learned a big lesson over the last 4 months or so, a big cornerstone of which was the retreats that we hosted, it's that we need to, as leaders, we need to have clarity and we need to know our core values in order to be consistent about the decisions that we make, and in order to attract the right people, we need to be true to those core values. What are your core values that are channeled throughout this business and elsewhere in life?
The number one thing for me is hospitality, because there's a lot to unpack with that, and you can extend hospitality towards everyone you're involved with. You extend the hospitality towards the guest. I extend hospitality towards my fellow managers and all employees and all coworkers, towards the housekeepers who aren't on payroll, they're contracts, extend hospitality towards them, which is super important, and towards the outside vendors like our hot tub repairmen and our pest control and our bed bug protection program, and just being hospitable to absolutely everyone that you encounter. Um, and like, gosh, even if just somebody's reaching out to you via email to say like, "Hey, we're doing this silent auction. Are you able to donate anything?" Maybe I'm not able to, but I will respond to let them know that and appreciate the fact that they thought of us and reached out, and to try me next year. Um, just just offering hospitality towards everybody, which means an open door and a smile and being just compassionate.
And so, is that hospitality core value of yours also one of your company's core values?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think every person in here feels that for sure.
That's an interesting way of describing it. Like, how can you tell that there's a strong value present? You can feel it. And it's hard to describe. It's like a mist in the air. It's not always a specific action that you encounter, right? And for employees and for team members, that makes it kind of tricky because it's like, wait a minute, where are my procedures that I'm supposed to be following? It's like, no, no, no. It's actually the vibe you've bought into when you work here, right?
Oh, very much a vibe. Absolutely. A mist in the air. I like that. And kind of on par with that, like something that we always make space here for, and we talk about it all the time, is like there's a gray area. There's a gray area. Like, don't be afraid of the gray area. While we absolutely have black and white things in place because that structure is so necessary and so important, people need it. But where we really thrive is in that gray area, and that gray area is a vibe because
Hmm.
if a guest calls with a particular problem, there's a loose playbook for that, but it's not gonna be black and white all the time, and, you have to, like, through experience, your gut becomes sensitive to how to handle things in the gray area to benefit both guest and company.
It reminds me of the thin spaces, which is an Irish idea, but it's actually people in between living and afterlife. So not to be
Mm.
confused um, with thin spaces. That's like some people supposedly can tap into those little areas. I guess it's a gift.
Thin space, I dig that. That's something to ponder on.
When you think about your next leap, your next steps, you mentioned you're kind of like in a trans
I'm in an in-between state.
an in between and in a thin place.
In a thin place, yes.
Just kidding, folks. She's not going to die anytime soon. What are your goals for including more community stakeholders in these movements?
You know, Matt, I don't know if I have those properly mapped out or understood yet. It's something that I think about and meditate on every day and even kind of take notes on every day, but right now it's it's all just developing thought. I'm trying to get involved with the Smoky Mountain Vacation and Lodging Association. So far, that's just been emails, but like October's crazy here. And so I think once we get past October and get past Verma and the beginning of November settles down a little bit, um, I hope to kind of jump in and getting involved with them. Um, Miriam. I wanna hang out with Miriam more and learn more from her, and she's got a lot of community involvements so far as I understood from talking at the Keystone Retreat. So I just think, developing that relationship and kind of partnership and allyship or whatever, but, like and then, just having more conversations with small businesses, and, I almost feel like I wanna interview the town. Uh Um, because man, like the essence of this town was just made great by mom and pop and small stuff, and some is gonna stay and get bigger and better. Some things are gonna sell out and some things are gonna disappear, but I wanna learn from the mom and pops and the small businesses while I can. So, like, as you can see, I'm just having thoughts. I don't have any developed end goals or end game or goals as of right now. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think that's the fun is the brainstorming, the thoughts over time. Sometimes they stick around, sometimes they leave, sometimes they form into new thoughts based on one random person that you bump into or some sentence in a book that you read.
Yeah.
But so long as you're thinking about them and thinking about your next steps, it kind of gets exciting, right?
Absolutely, and I'm thinking about my next steps, and I'm writing about all this as I go in almost a creative way, not like logging anything or but just kind of like it is a version of a creative process, and I'm a creative, and I write, um, short stories and poetry and stuff like that. So like as I can as I'm trying to develop myself and carve out this new path, I'm excited about it. I'm inspired. I'm motivated. I can feel my own energy, and I'm writing about it as I go, and it kind of feeds off of each other, and that keeps my momentum kind of bouncing back and forth because maybe I'm not feeling particularly um, fruitful one day professionally. So then I'll just write down my woes of that day creatively, and it gets me motivated for the next day professionally.
And something that I really resonate with you is your view on the future stakeholders of vacation rental um, growth. And I think we're in very much a transitive moment as an industry, sort of generational shift taking place, as we've seen so many people who had been doing this forever retiring, selling their businesses, um, all kinds of different outcomes. But I have noticed a huge new wave of younger folks. And I'm curious, what do you think? What do you like to tell to that new wave of people who are entering now? What message do they need to hear?
I think that millennials and Gen Z, when we go into when we're finding jobs and figuring out what we want to do and experiencing employment for different companies, we're always thinking about what we deserve. We think of our parents and the boomers of just like grinding it out, the 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, which personally I think is an incredible schedule. But we we always think of them just like putting their nose to the ground and working their butts off. And so we're kind of, we're all kind of all in a position of like, what do we deserve when we're giving, but what do we get out of this? When you're working in the hospitality industry, you have always got to be asking yourself, what do your guests deserve? Um, and so I don't know. I don't know if that's any good advice at all. And like, maybe that's duh, but I don't think you have the chops for the industry if you're not thinking every day and almost everything you do, what do the guests deserve? Because
Mm.
they're far from home. They're putting mileage on their vehicles, paying for gas. They get a little disoriented when they're away from home. They're in a property that's unfamiliar with them, and they've spent a lot of hard-earned money with you. They deserve a lot, in my opinion. And so I applaud the younger generations for trying to understand what they deserve and going after what they deserve. Like, don't stop. That's amazing. But in the hospitality industry, don't ever forget about what the guests deserve.
And I'll share that in a slightly different way. Same sentiment. If you are putting yourself in those guest shoes and asking yourself what they deserve and giving them what they deserve, that makes you a very successful hospitality business. Like that's a really good business play if that's your style. If that's not your style, you may want to think about something different. But I always like to remind folks that this industry is new. And people say, oh, how can you say it's new? We've been around for decades. It's like, in that sense, yeah, we're really new. I mean, as a formal industry, we're really new. And there are no
Yeah.
experts. There are none. And this is coming out of the mouth of someone who sometimes introduces himself as an expert. There are none. In fact, the people who are actually on the ground doing the work, you are the experts. And especially when it's a small company, when your brand is your story, when your brand is your leadership, you are the expert in all of that. So I think there is a confidence building that needs to take place in realizing, okay, I am made for this. I am good at this. I'm going to focus on this and not be sort of distracted by other dynamics. I think that makes a really successful business.
Agreed, man. Completely agreed. And we're a 28-year-old business. My dad's been doing it for 10 years. I've been doing it for 8. Have we been around a while? Yes, but this COVID post-COVID world, now it feels like a brand new industry and market. It is new. It is new.
And what about like I oftentimes look at the traveling public and I look at the professional public, people who hold professional careers. And I always think that what we currently see in front of our eyes in the vacation rental sector is only a percentage of that. It's not reflecting the full potential. And I see this in all different kinds of ways. And the word inclusion gets thrown around a lot, but I actually really view it as just more holistic thinking. Like, how do these systems that we're building incorporate all the people who can and would love to be part of them? Is that part of your future community slash leadership messaging too?
In our systems and processes and operations and managerial style and culture was all hunky dory and working perfectly fine, and was we had our crazy seasons, but things were pretty chill up until COVID. And now it just blew the top off things. And now people realized how profitable this industry is. So the homeowners they have new interests and thoughts, and these are investment properties, not vacation properties. Tech companies are realizing, like, we can get in there and we can offer this. I don't Everything's just been shaken up. It's changing, and like, you just have to be open-minded enough to say, "Okay, so this is what it is. Um, it's happening. Yep, and so what can I do to ensure our success? What can I do to stay ahead of the game?" Like, we are not a keep up company. Like, we will always be focused on staying ahead of the game, and I think having, youth within the office is an important part of staying ahead. Um, uh, you have to be so, like, I'm like the general on the hill, right? And you have to, like, I can't. I There's no way I can I don't know, like, lead without talking to the people in the field and the people in the front line, the reservations team, the maintenance men, the inspectors, which is part of why I have the suggestion box, and just saying, like, I'm open to anything that you have to offer. You can email it to me, you can text it to me, you can put it on a post-it note, you can come back to my office. Like, I'm open. You're the ones experiencing it. You're the ones who have the eyes and the ears on it. Like, we will be better because of what you have to offer. So bring me your ideas. And again, the worst that's going to happen is it gets shot down, or a seed gets planted, or we meet halfway. There's a compromise. But, like, by by your allowing your teams to know that you're open-minded and open-hearted enough to adapt and change and improve, um, because of their recommendations, like, that's just how you stay ahead. And on the flip side, they have to be open-minded and open-hearted enough. If you come down and you say, like, "I've got this great idea, let's just see it through. I'm so sorry if it sucks for a little while, but let's just see it through, because the end game, I think, is going to be this." And they've got to be willing to trust you and ride that out with you. And
I've got a new name for you. The general at third base.
yeah. Third base general. Okay. I see myself in, like, with my little sword and my military outfit standing on third base.
Yeah, and they're like, "Ma'am, you can't bring those weapons in here."
Yes, yes. The general at third base.
Lauren, do you, as we close out the year, do you have any predictions for your area or more broadly on the industry over the course of the next sort of 6 to 9 months?
My predictions are that the people who bought, quote unquote, investment properties, and were going to attempt to manage it themselves, they'll start realizing that this is a second job, if not a full-time job, and that not being here to form local connections and relationships with the vendors and the workers, they'll realize that like they need professional property management. And I think that there will be a change in tide in that way. I think it's already begun. Um, and then the people who have maybe owned their cabins for a while and their company sold out to bigger companies, um, I think they'll grow a little restless and impatient and believe that they deserve better in some ways, like communication and transparency, and they'll start reaching out to professional property managers. So, during COVID and in 2021, buying and selling was taking place like crazy, which means losing properties off your program and gaining properties on your program. That slowed down a lot because of rising interest rates. So real estate has slowed down. But I think like in the next 6 to 9 months, when people realize they either deserve better and more out of a property management program, or there's no such thing as passive income, I think professional property managers will just start seeing small family owned and operated professional property managers will start seeing an influx of people needing management. That's the only like solid prediction I have. I think there's a lot of writing on the wall with that.
What a powerful note to end on. My big takeaway from the conversation with Lauren is that to be a leader, you kind of have to want to be a leader. And if you do, there's so much space in this industry to grow and evolve. But it doesn't come from sitting back or doing things the way that they've always been done. It comes from challenging the status quo, inventing actual solutions to problems, and having the confidence in yourself and your instinct to step up. And the more connected you can be with your core values, the better you can articulate them like Lauren does so beautifully, the more people will follow you, or at least hang around you, which has tremendous long-term personal and business rewards. This is a business of relationships after all. So who's leading your team? If this conversation resonated with you, consider joining me and Lauren in VRMB communities, where over 1,000 of the world's most thoughtful and creative vacation rental leaders are collaborating virtually under one roof. You can sign up at vrmb.com/join. Until next time.